Hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to be continuing our series on choosing a trainer, and we're going to be looking at the Diamond DV20. Now, the Diamond DV20 is a kind of a unique trainer as far as a trainer plane goes, because to be honest, it's a tiny plane, a really small plane. Let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, I'm going to climb inside this thing. I take a looking around. Everything looks really big, like not bad. I've got this nose, obviously, back seats or anything like that. But for those of you who have access to VR, go ahead and put on your VR goggles and I'll push the button. I'll wait. Yeah, told you. As a matter of fact, I don't know how in the physical world I'd be able to actually put my feet down here without my knees being up on my chest. But that being said, this is actually a really neat trainer because it has a lot of really nice features on it. It has a relatively simple fuel system. It's GPS enabled. It's got really simple controls. It's very responsive, easy to handle. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it'll actually take you pretty far depending on what you want to do. So like we did with the last plane, let's go ahead and kind of get this thing started. Again, relatively simple system. We have ourselves a battery master switch. Basically, you pop that sucker on like that. We're going to confirm to make sure our mixture is set in the correct position. Now, notice we have a propeller control. Yes, a propeller control in an aircraft this small. Isn't that incredible? We also have our little throttle control, and check it out. We have a trim that's on detent. So you go click, and you basically set your trim by popping it in the detent that you actually want to stick it into. It's just like, it's wild. Fuel valve, we took care of that already. That's been set. We have a parking lot. We have a little choke here. We can go and pull this out if we were having difficulty starting the engine. Basically floods the engine with extra gas. We don't really need to worry about that today because, like I said, this thing's pretty easy. Pop on the position light and no sophistication as far as a lot of this goes. Looking through my instruments, I see I've got my airspeed, I've got my attitude, altitude, everything's basically your standard 6, which is wonderful. We also have a single CDI here, enabling us to be able to do a little bit of navigation. GPS, as well as a classic little transponder. Instrumentation for engines, couldn't be simpler. We have ourselves manifold, RPM, because we have a variable pitch. We have our coolant temperature, and notice we're a water-cooled engine. That's a little different than you're probably used to. We also have our fuel tank. Oh man, this thing also came off a snowblower somewhere. Not that I'm complaining. I actually think it's really cool. All right, let's get this thing started. Look out the window. Let's see here. Not that I can see out the back behind me or anything like that, but it looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and crank this thing over. Super duper simple. To prime this, we're just going to take the fuel pump. We're going to turn it on, push the throttle forward, push the throttle back. That's all I had to do. And that's it. We're just going to come over here to off, on, both, start. We're going to go ahead and crank it. And that's it. Couldn't be simpler. There's a neat little transmission sound if you listen to it real carefully too, like kind of like that whine that you typically get with small little gears and stuff. Engine's warming up now at this particular point, so I'm going to go ahead and flip on the Avionics master switch. You're going to get all sorts of funny things like that. It's going to give you all kind of warnings. And look at this, we have a GPS. Nice. We also have this guy. Now, one of the problems, and I'm going to complain about it, is as far as a training plane goes, it's not bad because it's so easy and small, and you'll see how it's handling. Like, as far as an airplane goes, though, we're a little limited on the fact that our communication radio only exists for 2 freaks, and our location, I should say, our nav radio only exists for 2 freaks. We don't have a separate common nav radar. Radio rather, what I've been reading about. The problem with that is that when you're doing things like complicated operations or you're listening to multiple channels at a time, you are sunk as far as trying to be able to quickly communicate back and forth. Like if I want to go get the weather over at Bradley, for example, I have to come in here and do 118, pop this thing. I don't know why somebody insisted on putting it on the mode that gives me all the freaks. I'd have to swap.
Bradley Airport information, Charlie 19000. Wind 25, forward at 17. Visibility.
Seeing the real plane, you sit here and fits with these like 5 minutes trying to get your microphone set right.
4,600 feet.
All right. So you can see now if I needed to pop over to my local frequency now, which for this particular airport is at 1227, you can see I can only have one of these going at a time, which means if I'm on some kind of instrument flight plane, let's say I'm doing flight following or something like that, I have to change radios in order to be able to hear it, which means you have to tell the poor person that you're flight following with, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be popping off the air. You won't be able to contact me for a few moments while I'm getting busy. All right, that's all taken care of. You can see since we're water cooled, temperature's good. Let's get this thing rolling and let's have some fun with the actual flying here. So we're sitting here at, this is Simsbury Airport. Now, this is lovely. Simsbury, Connecticut is kind of the northeast Simsbury area. The reason I chose this airport is because many years ago when I first started flying in the real world, this is where I flew out of, and it was just one of those things where it's simple enough for me to do. Now, in the real world, these are all hangar buildings right there, and also on my left side, there's always a bunch of airplanes parked right there, which means as we'd be cruising along this hill here, we'd be at the risk of basically smacking into every single one of them as we're coming through. Now, one interesting thing I noticed is my nose wheel steering is actually very aggressive. Now, if you look on a nose wheel on this particular aircraft, it is a cast ring nose wheel only, what you're supposed to be able to do is steer the airplane using just the differential brakes. Now, that is a very, very Diamond kind of a problem, and it's sort of unique to Diamond. Some people think it's the greatest thing ever. I personally find it very irritating when I don't have that extra level of control, especially if you're in a crosswind. And like I said before, go load this airplane up in VR. You're going to get claustrophobic. Like I said, though, if you want to pick a trainer, it's not bad, but we'll see exactly what it's capable of in a minute. So we're going to go ahead and back taxi right here. Now, the reason we're back taxiing, of course, is the wind is coming out of 240, so we're going to be using runway 21 here. As always, when you're taking off with this sucker, you can see I've got myself the big old display threshold. We can certainly use that as a way to turn around. One of the fun things in the real world, of course, is when you're flying like 172s and stuff, there's no place to turn around here. So what you could do, of course, is you could try to go off into the grass and go bounce, 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 or something like that. Or you could basically do the cheap strategy where you're basically going to load up one tire, then you kick it over, and then you jam on the left brake really, really hard and kind of tap it while jamming on the gas at the same time to try to get those things that kind of rotate around. But ideally, you wouldn't even, or not ideally, well, realistically, you just wouldn't even have that control. All right, there's our lovely runway. Here we go. Aw, it's like a little squirrel. First thing I notice is directional control is excellent. It's pulling me to the right instead of the left, which is, that's a new one. That's a new one. Then again, take a look where the wind's coming from. Doesn't surprise me at all. That's our rotate speed. We'll lift up that nose. And let's get out of the ground effect. Remember, a ground effect will enable you to become airborne before you take liftoff speed. You all know how that goes. All right, nose up. We're going to go ahead and pitch for about 70 knots or so. Like, there's a little tower right there. Who parked that there? Jerk. And we're getting a climb rate of get about 700 feet per minute at 70 knots here, for those of you who are kind of keeping score. About 5, 6, 7. Not too bad at all. Lovely Farmington River, a bunch of power lines. I'm not going to worry about that too much. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take my nice gentle right here, and we're going to start making our way over to the practice area. Now, our practice area is known as the Barkhampton Reservoir. The reason I like to kind of go out there is it's absolutely beautiful, first of all, for those of you who've ever been able to see that in the real world. Second, it gives us plenty of opportunity to try to see how long this thing gets up to altitude. You know, like I'm sitting here, like as you can see pretty clearly, I'm getting about 500-600 feet per minute. Keep in mind, we're at max gross, which is pretty typical for a 2-seat trainer here. If you're flying something like a 172 with the 4 seats, you're not going to be at max gross, but you're probably still going to be pretty darn heavy. We're doing about 74, 75 knots. I'm going to let the nose come up just a tiny bit, see how it handles as far as trim goes. So let's take a look what we can see. First things first, our inner scale here is in kilometers per hour. Our outer scale here is going to be in knots, which is a little bit different. Now, the reason I think this is interesting is because this aircraft is probably more common in Europe than it is in the United States, where light sport aircraft are much, much more popular. Remember, in Europe, you have a slightly different landmass, you have different needs, you have different airspaces and everything like that. So you tend to get a slightly, like I said, an alternate perspective on a lot of these kind of things. So I'm going to come ahead and swing to my right just a teeny tiny bit here. Go ahead and take a look at all my indications. We're doing fine on cylinder temperature. Let's see here. Our Hobbs time is good. Everything is great, actually, despite being as cold as it is today. Avionics-wise, this would be a great time to go ahead and give it the good old-fashioned, how's the directional gyro doing? I'm going to press the D key, and it didn't go jumping on me, which gives me some hope to the quality of the directional gyro in here. One of the downsides with the default Cessna 172 is this thing goes, whoa. You can even pause the aircraft and watch it rotate in place. It's just one of those things where it's like, why? Why does it do that? That shouldn't do that. Passing over Great Pond here. I used to go ice skating here many years ago. It's just kind of fun to kind of see something along those lines. Go ahead and kick it off. I'm using just my feet to go ahead and keep this thing nice and steady. Just trying to kind of get a complete feel with it. But already I'm incredibly impressed by just how gentle this aircraft is. You know, I'm not having to force it anywhere. It's just kind of going. Nah, it's not that fast. But like I said, not bad. Not bad at all. I'll go ahead and see you guys at the practice area. All right, we're just setting up the practice area as well as 3,500 feet. Now, 3,500 feet gives us a pretty good amount of wiggly room underneath us to see what would happen. This is also a great time to see what we have as far as that performance goes. I definitely have a pretty nasty crosswind today, kind of coming from the southwest sort of region. Does not surprise me in the slightest, but yucky. Now, like I said, the reason I love this area is it just has this gorgeous reservoir, and for those of you who are adventurous, there's this neat little valley there with a cool little state park that you can kind of zip around inside of. Definitely not supposed to do that in the real world. It's a great way to do it. The first thing I'm interested in is seeing how fast we can get this thing to go. So right now I'm at full throttle, and I've actually been accelerating for a few moments there. My ground speed indication says I'm doing 104 knots. Let's see, I'm doing 108 true. Of course, like I said, it's a bit of a wind today, so it doesn't surprise me. And I'm just sitting here trying to get a feel for just how difficult this thing is to trim. Keep in mind, Microsoft Flight Simulator has no clue how trim works. In the real world, your trim is linear. If I give it 3 clicks up, it's only 3 clicks. If I give them quickly, it's still only 3 clicks. This one seems to accelerate on you, and it makes it so frustrating. So frustrating to set the trim. But one thing I'm noticing is now that I've got it kind of established, I'm going to pull the throttle back. For this particular one, it's pretty easy. We're just going to come back to 25 inches. We're going to go ahead and pull the throttle back to 2200, and we are good to go. Yeah, there it is. Taking a look at my fuel consumption. It says, according to the computer, I'm using, let's see here, 4 hours and 45 minutes of fuel remaining. And we are using 0.6 gallons just to get here. So that's not 5.3 gallons per hour. There we go. So this thing is fuel economical for sure. That's actually pretty impressive. Taking a look at our fuel capacity on this thing of 20 gallons, that's staggering that you would have a 5-hour basically endurance here. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and run it through a couple different maneuvers. The first maneuver I'm really interested in, as I'm interested as always in my steep turns. We'll take the easy steep turn first because, like I said, it's going to be rolling that way. All right, we're going to take that nice right turn. We're going to come all the way to steep. Yeah, we're just going to give it a little tug and see what it does. Oh my gosh. That is... That's relaxing. Oh man, I feel like I could do this all afternoon. This is the most comfortable steep turn I think I've ever made in an airplane before. Like, I'm not having to do anything. I can untilt it just a little bit. I'm like moving my controller like half an inch here in order to execute a perfectly smooth steep turn. It's not picking up speed or anything like that. We'll go ahead and come out of the steep turn here. And we'll go right into the opposite direction. Oh, I love doing that in real plane too. It's so much fun. All right, now going this way. Ooh, that's nice. Oh, starting to lose a little bit of altitude though. I gotta hold that nose up a little more. Yes, this is pleasant. I'm basically just going. I'm like not having to fight it. I'm not like feeling weird vibrations or anything like that. It's literally just going on its own, which means as far as acrobatics goes, this thing's pretty good. That is predicted because, again, this is a very, very lightweight airplane, so it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that it is able to execute maneuvers like this. Like, I could walk away from this and probably trim it out, and it would stay here for the next 25 minutes. That's really, really, really impressive. Next thing we're going to go ahead and take a look at as far as training maneuvers goes, so we're going to be very interested in seeing what does it do when we get it to the edge of safety here. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit of altitude. I lost just a tiny bit. That looks pretty good. Nose down. We're going to pull that throttle all the way back. RPM comes forward. We're just going to let the nose get nice and heavy here. We're going to have to slow down just a little bit to get in the white arc. Flaps go down, click it 2 notches, and we're going to go ahead and try a approach stall first. Now, I have the feeling that in an aircraft this lightweight, we're going to get a little bit of the following feather kind of a thing, but I also have the fear that we're going to drop a wing. We'll see exactly what it does. All right, nose is getting heavy, really heavy. Oh my. There's the warning. Does not like this. And there's the drop. Whoa, whoa. Ooh. Okay. Let's go force it into a secondary stall this time. Flaps all the way back down. In general, those aircraft, that wasn't a violent stall, but it definitely wasn't soft. And the other thing is, I don't know why the wing would drop like that if the aircraft itself was not under power. See if it does it again. That's better, and there's the drop. Ooh, that's not good. Okay, let's go ahead and try that one more time. I'm going to go ahead and make sure the flap's in the right position. I'm going to come this way. I'm going to see if I can beat that drop. It always wants to go down on the right wing, so let's see if we can fight it and not lose it on the right wing. I'm actually going to hold it to the left a little bit here. And now it drops on the left wing. No. All right, this one definitely gets a D- for me as far as that kind of stall goes. Let's go ahead and try it with my arch nemesis stall. That's not good. That's not good. Either I'm pulling it too far or the tail most likely has more authority than it should. That's what I'm guessing, is I'm basically pulling it past. And also, the secondary stall is very, very, very dangerous. So let's go ahead and slow down a little bit more. Hold that nose up. There's the warning, full throttle. How much this thing's going to take. Okay, it shouldn't have done that. That was a little bit better. The reason I said it shouldn't have done that, if you take a look at the coordination of the airplane, see how I'm kind of pushing a little bit of right foot. Oop, too much. A little bit of left foot, right foot, left foot. Whoa, there it is. And there's the spin. See if I can make it a bad spin. Nope. There it is. Oh! Ugh. None of that was exaggerated, by the way. No, that also gets a D. Maybe it's a Microsoft thing, maybe it's the DV20, but as far as a safety goes for that kind of a maneuver, it's going to get a big fat D there. That's a borderline failing there. That was tremendously dangerous. You know, aircraft like this, if they're designed to help people learn to fly, that's not going to encourage them to learn to fly. Because remember, when you spin because you got a little too slow on final approach and the wing dropped and you tried to fight it by pulling back. That's where people spin. You wouldn't have had any time to recover. And given the way this aircraft just dumps on you, you would think this would be like a Cirrus or like a G36 or something like that. That was not safe. Okay, so the last thing we're going to have to evaluate now is going to be our navigational performance. Now, taking a look at my little controls, one thing I noticed is that we do have ourselves a lovely GPS. Let's go ahead and take advantage of that lovely GPS here. I'm going to pull that nose back just a tiny bit and kind of climb us back out of this nasty mess I seem to have gotten myself into. Zoom out just a little bit, and we should be able to see the airport I took off from right on my side. Perfect. Go ahead and spin ourselves around, and we're going to enjoy the fact that we have that. So far as handling and maneuvering goes, definitely nice. As far as safety goes, it's, like I said, we'll see if that approach to landing is a little bit better. All right, I'll come get you folks when we're in our pattern. All right, we're just swinging around here, getting ready for our approach. We're coming into kind of a cross runway, and then we're going to go into a left downwind for 2-1 there. I'm going to go ahead and make sure all my settings are correct. Remember, with this aircraft, we have a mixture handle and we have a carburetor heat handle. Whenever you pull that throttle back, at least in a 172, you're supposed to turn the carb heat on. We are not going to worry about that too much, not in this case. Pattern altitude here at Simsbury is 1,200 feet. Kind of interesting. You probably just watched the directional gyro do a little spike there. That thing drifted bad. We did not have a very long flight to get back here. That was like a 7-minute flight to get here. So that they're losing some points here. They're losing some points, but that's okay. Because again, I love the maneuverability of this thing. It really is impressive, and I'm very curious to see how it's going to handle as far as our landing goes. Especially seeing as I can't even see the runway because we have ourselves a low-wing aircraft here. All right, this is going to be the world's ugliest left downwind here, but that's all right. Pop down that first notch. And we're just going to do the best we can to kind of hold it nice and steady here. Looks pretty good so far. There we go. It's going to basically, I'm going to go right from downwind to base here. And it's looking pretty good, looking pretty good. Now we're parallel. All right, go ahead and pull that throttle back. And we're going to make our way back down here. Sweet. All right. So far, so good. Pretty easy. Like I said, we don't have that ridiculous climb rate that you get in some aircraft. We're definitely going for a bit of a trip, though, because the wind is so darn strong here. Doesn't surprise me. Straighten this out. Looking pretty good. Just keeping an eye on the end of that runway. That's looking pretty good there. Go ahead and make this turn a little bit more aggressive than it probably needs to be, only on account of the fact that that wind is going to catch us if we're not quick enough. Yeah, we're a bit high, but nothing to write home about. All right, looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Last notch of flaps in. Coffin corner. We're now pretty much lined up. We're a little fast, but that's not too bad. All right, we're going to try the plane on a slip. All right, it's slowing down. It's slowing down. Slowing down enough. Okie doke. That's pretty good. Sweet. All right, let's go line ourselves up with big old runway 21. Again, the wind's coming out of the right there, so I'm going to put the right wing down a little bit. Coming a little hot, but that's okay. Runway. Down we go. Ooh. I was sensitive. Ooh, great brakes, though. All right. Not bad. Not bad. All right. So where do I feel about this aircraft? Well, first things first, if you want a really maneuverable, really tiny plane for VR purposes, this is awesome. If you're looking for something that's kind of a step up from the basics, at least as far as avionics goes, if you can deal with only having that one radio capability, it's not bad. Instrumentation was pretty easy. Like I said, the directional gyro likes to hunt around. The fuel system is delightfully simple to operate, which is great. It's not something I have to babysit. The engine's very responsive. It has a propeller handle, which I think is super duper cool because, again, that's super duper rare in an aircraft of this size. Like I was saying before, though, that stall was dangerous. That might be a Microsoft Flight Simulator thing. That might be something's wrong with my technique, but that was hazardous. I've stalled planes in the real world plenty of times, and I've never had it that bad. But at least it was a little better than the Cadet. Let's take a peek at the final ratings. All right, here's kind of my final conclusions here. Like I was just saying, definitely these are all of our pluses. One thing I should have mentioned was the great visibility from the cockpit. Like I said, it's still kind of slow. The stall and spin is not acceptable for a trainer. Like you couldn't. This is like the Trauma Hawk; it would kill you. Tiny plane, that's not necessarily negative. The radio, like I said, a problem. Propeller, that can be a tricky handle if you're new to planes. And like I said, in the real plane, we have a really, really tough time steering that wheel. Other than that, enjoy.